This is Art Sense, a podcast focused on educating and informing listeners about the past, present, and future of art. I'm Craig Gould. On today's episode, I speak with digital artist and author diewiththemostlikes, whose work consists of short creative prose and digital graphics which examine the human condition through an absurdist lens. Die's work is filled with scenes of consumption and excess by figures oblivious of the death and decay around them. I encourage listeners to follow the links in the episode description to understand more clearly the nature of his work, especially on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Previous guest Derek Edward Schloss also joins the conversation to talk about his new gallery Glitch Marfa in the artist's residency 30 Days in Marfa, which Die With The Most Likes is currently concluding. That conclusion will culminate with an NFT drop on Art Blocks titled Nameless Dread. And now, a conversation about the joy of a slow death by overconsumption with artist Die With The Most Likes. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Art Sense podcast. And Di, we are also joined by Derek Edward Schloss. Derek, not your first time on the podcast. Just to remind folks, most people know you from Collab Currency. We talked about Flamingo Dell. You are also the co-founder of Glitch Marfa. And you reached out to me and said, hey, you know what? I think you would really enjoy talking to this artist named Die With The Most Likes that is part of our new residency at Glitch Marfa. And I think, I trust your opinions enough to just kind of blindly say sure. But after looking at Die's work, I definitely wanted to have a conversation. But Die, my conversations with artists, I like to start with, the same hypothetical for all the artists, which is, let's say you're sitting at a dinner party next to somebody who has absolutely no idea who you are or what your work consists of. How do you start to explain that to them?
Yeah, so on my LinkedIn bio, I say that I'm a malt liquor energy drink floating in a retention pond outside of a abandoned strip mall in your hometown is how I would best describe my work. So it's gritty, it's relentless, it's oftentimes psychotic, violent, brutal, but in many ways, that's the front of it. And beneath that is some very subtle and nuanced and delicate observations on us as humans, on our kind of demise, our painless demise, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. But it's all very thoughtful, actually. So some of those mechanisms are used to grab people's attention initially, and then once you start like wading a little bit further into the pieces, you say like, oh, maybe there's something a little bit deeper here that I need to be considering that's not within that kind of violent and brutal nature. So that's kind of, so I like legit, that's how I describe my art to people when they ask me. I use that, a floating malt liquor energy drink in a retention pond, because it's so apt and it's so like accurate. So yeah.
Some artists have to, like, at some point in that conversation, bring out their phone and start kind of swiping at images. And for some artists, that's problematic because they're making 8-foot by 8-foot paintings that are really about this experience of color field and being absorbed into and seeing the texture. But your visuals, they can be aptly consumed on a small device, right? I mean, you can take it out and show someone. And when you do, how do they respond, after hearing about the floating malt liquor drink and then seeing, the visuals of the demise? What's the next response?
Yeah, so many times it's initial disgust for sure, or perhaps like not fully understanding what they're looking at. Like I see them, and I see this kind of inquisitive look as they settle into the piece a little bit, and it usually takes 30 or 40 seconds for that person to even have any remote comfortability within the piece. And that's really what I strive for, is to suffocate people and pull them into this world where the only way out is through, so it's initially discussed, then, some consideration and comfort. And then I think at a certain point, there's kind of this almost embracing of like the peculiar and the mad world that I'm like documenting in there, hopefully. And so, in combination with the prose that I write and the short poetry that goes along with the pieces, I think it helps guide the person through the piece as though it's almost like a bait line or something where it's just saying like, come on, come further, and maybe you're going to get a little bit. Um, but it is you talk about consumption, and that's something I'm very obsessed with as well, where it's like, we're in this state where it's in one hole out the other, and we just literally don't digest anything anymore, and it's very consumptive. So in many ways, the things that I am like I'm satirizing or making fun of are the things that I also cherish, and the things that I've like found success in terms of like serving up the flavorless slop that everyone wants.
And you literally draw going in one hole and out the other, right?
It's true. It's very true. Maybe that's what I need to do for my like initial artist description, just in one hole out the other. It really is. There's a lot of incontinence in the pieces. There's a lot of yeah, just varying substances going in eyes and out of other places. I'm very obsessed with meat as well, in kind of our parallels to the butcher room floor. So yeah, you're dead on there for sure.
Yeah. So I've heard you talk a bit about the meat before. That's a kind of an ongoing theme. I mean, it seems like a lot of your prose winds up finding like you're a published author, but a lot of your prose these days winds up being 4 or 5 lines on what used to be known as Twitter, but we'll call it X now. In that feed, there's a lot of meat, right? What is your fascination with meat?
Yeah, I think that there's just a comedy to how ground beef is presented to us, I think, where it's like this entire animal's being just, crudely wrapped in a piece of plastic and thrown out at like a gas station by gas station butchers. There's a certain comedy in just the presentation there where it's like all this entire thing's being like the bones, the flesh, the memories, everything is just pulverized into this like pink spaghetti and then served up to us. And that's just like how we're supposed to accept it. But I think the other part is just the of course the parallels to us being no different than like a prized hog at a county fair waiting for slaughter. So, just sitting there and accepting our prescribed demise versus, having some way out of it. And like, you'll constantly hear the people, and I don't think it's a novel comparison where it's like we're all just meat bags or something. I take it one step further in many ways in a lot of my pieces. And I think the last thing I would say about the meat thing is my high school was right next to a dog food factory plant growing up. So there wasn't AC or anything. So you just sit there inhaling the fumes of slaughtered beasts, ready to feed other beasts. And it would just be like, 95 degrees in the middle of August. And it's like, wow, this is like a wild scent and kind of a wild, I guess, mindset to be in, just imagining the slaughter and like the just filth that's happening in there. So I guess I just reminisced on it a lot when I should have been studying whatever it was I was supposed to be studying, geometry or whatever.
I thought it was really interesting when I was looking at your work. I mean, it has a particular look that is it's very contemporary. It's work that, a person would recognize the line work as being from off an iPad versus, paint and canvas. But, I found it really interesting that if we wanted to highbrow take a look at what you're doing, it reminds me in a way of what we used to call memento mori, which is, which is Latin for remember that you too will die, right? I mean, there's this overtone that we're all sort of, in a way, I think of if you've ever driven down the 5 in California and you drive past Harris Ranch and, what they would refer to as Calschwitz, there's like 20,000 cow, 100,000, 200,000 cows that are being fattened up for slaughter that, whether we realize it or not, we're just kind of biding out our time being fattened up by society, watching the clock tick down to zero.
Yeah. It's an incredible parallel that you made there. And it is, and I think that what I try to do is also find humor in that demise too, because it's like, if you can't laugh at that prospect of us staring at that clock and the routine fattening and the inevitable dismantle that we'll experience by someone's hand, whether it be nature or otherwise, it's just like what are we doing here? There's comedy in that for sure. And I think that like depriving yourself of that comedy is like something that I don't know. Like, I don't think that existing in a state of that type of dread is almost like sustainable, you know. So you have to laugh, or else your life is probably pretty miserable. Which is so funny because like the pieces I create are oftentimes super sad and but there's comedy in them, and I think that um, like I definitely try to find reprieve within that comedy and just laugh when I can. Like I create very sad and I live very happy is what I like to say usually.
When I look at work, there's something there that, for whatever reason, it reminds me of Mike Judge's work. I mean, you think of Beavis and
Oh
Butthead, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, for sure.
the line work from 30 years ago when
Yep.
those first rudimentary drawings were being animated. But then, his iconic Idiocracy, right? This
Oh yeah. Yep.
post American America, like where it's all spun out of control, right? And I just feel like that hyper consumerism, hyper consumption.
Hmm.
I feel like it really shows up in your thought process, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like I love Mike Judge is just such he's an inspiration, I think, to everyone, really, like whether we know it or not. It's like you watch that movie Office Space that came out in whatever, like 2002 maybe, or even late
Yeah.
90s, and it's still happening. Like that's everyone's daily existence. It's like these are just like such incredible nuanced takes on humanity and what we're all going through on a daily basis. But yeah, it's the it really is. I consider myself a documentarian in many ways in how I'm looking at this stuff. So I'll with the writing that I do, like I'll often observe something and then I'll take it into this really kind of mad and depraved place, but it's not that far out of reality. And I think that's maybe why people find my art so unsettling because it's like could this be happening in 3 years? Like, could there be like a Xanax trough at Chili's in the next 3 years, or could there be like an election decided by glory holes at some point? Like, I don't know, maybe. Like, who knows? Well, who's to say? And I think that's part of it. Like, I try to toe the line between the filth, the disgust, the decay, but then also it's like oh man, yeah, this may happen. So it's like I remember listening to a pod with Mike Judge on it, and he said like he was looking for the dumbest shoe he could possibly find for Idiocracy. And somebody was like, "Well, there's these things called Crocs, like they're like we can get them for like $2 a thing or whatever." And now those are going for like $60 a pop, and they're everywhere in the country. So like, I don't know, there's something to be said about that. And I think that artistically that's where I try to be too. Like I want to be everywhere all the time, like kind of almost like a parasite in people's minds where it's just everywhere. So yeah, that's definitely accurate.
Does your process start with the writing? And if it starts with the writing, how do you start that ball rolling?
It's oftentimes happening concurrently. Like I'm so happy to be able to write as well, and I think that's a big part that's missing for a lot of artists is just going back and like reading books. Like we didn't have any museums in my hometown when I grew up. We had a recreational vehicle museum. Like it was like here's the best RVs to ever exist. You go there and be like, look at the overstuffed seats. They're incredible. This is an
Oh
incredible
my gosh.
achievement.
Sponsored
So
by Winnebago,
so,
right?
right, sponsored by Winnebago. We gotta get the sponsorship. But so my entire world was created through like Hunter S. and Burroughs and Haruki Murakami and Michelle Houellebecq, and so a lot of those were a lot of like the ways that I create are dictated by what I found in those authors' works and how I write now. But in terms of my process, yeah, it's oftentimes happening concurrently where I'll write a couple of lines of the prose and I'll explore what those mean within the canvas or the iPad if I'm doing digital, and then I'll feed those things back and forth. And once there's the finished product, generally in the visual side of things, then I'll really start hammering out and refining the prose that I want to put in there. And it's really interesting that you said the kind of I've a couple of long form books, but I've actually taken a lot of comfort and joy in creating shorter form content and leaving a little bit more up to mystery and having it a little bit more vague. Yeah, because you can get pretty deep in those books, and it's just like dude, it's 90,000 words, like it's a lot of a lot of writing. So I really like kind of having, the writing with the pieces being, between 500 and 1,000 words usually is what I try to do for my sweet spot there. So it's kind of like, again, bringing it back to that butcher. I'll write like a longer thing, and I'll go in and carve stuff off to carve off the fat to make sure that it's a completely cohesive piece together.
I think some folks struggle with getting to the level of creativity that you do because some people enter the art world because of their ability to create a
Mm,
replication of what they see,
mm,
right? But
mm,
but other people come from a more obtuse place. And so, you mentioned Burroughs. Burroughs like to, use cut up text. Like what sort
mm.
of things do you do to try to juxtapose things in your mind and then I guess work to kind of reconcile them in the end?
Mm. So I'm a huge notepad fiend on my iPhone. Like I have these like if I showed you a screenshot of the notepad, it would be, I don't know what would go through your head. It's like, every single thought that's ever come into my head. I'm like, write about this thing, write about this, draw this. And it's just everything. So what I like to say, and people ask a lot of times where I get my kind of initial ideas for the short stories or the pieces. And I didn't realize this, but before I go to bed, I have these moments of kind of almost what's the word? What is it when you're dreaming, but but you're aware that you're dreaming? What's that called? It's like
A salient dream
a
or
lucid, a salient or lucid
lucid, yeah,
dream. Yeah. So I really, it's pretty common that right before I fall asleep, I'll have these like almost bouts of just like complete madness where I'm thinking about stuff and it's my head just dumping everything out from the day, just evacuating everything. And in those moments I'll like spring awake and just get on my notepad and write it all down and like just try to write as much as I possibly can before I pass back out. But then within those notes are the nuggets that I explore, the kind of morsels that I feast on later. And really it also has to do with, and it's really tough nowadays because like we're all glued to our phones and we're all just like constantly, again, back to the consumption part of it. But the other thing that I just love to do is like you just sit there and you just take things in, like if you're just at a park or if you're at a pool or if you're at a Chili's or an Applebee's or wherever you're at, I just obsessively watch things happening because the most interesting stories can happen in the most nuanced spaces, like it's the gurgle of the skillet that's come out of the kitchen.
Mhm.
It's the guy hawking a huge loogie outside of the restaurant. It's the sagging ass of the dude in the wall. It's just like, it's so much stuff that like just gets completely washed over now. And we have no idea that these things are happening, even though like there's tons of like both beautiful and horrific things to, glean inspiration from out there that aren't just the rabid accumulation of like kind of pointless internet adoration.
You're observing the world in a different way because of your work and how your state of mind. It's like you're
Mm.
filtering the world around you in a totally different way. And I wonder, is your work making you depressed at any point, or are you able to find a lightheartedness in all of it? Because, I think part of
That-
your work is that everyone in the work is kind of oblivious to their state, right? But
yeah, for sure.
you on the other side of the fourth wall are able to like see the depravity of what they're in.
Yeah, that is, man, that is such a good observation because a lot of people don't really see that. Like they'll look at the horrors in the piece, but they don't realize that like the people are completely different to them, right? So like I'm so glad you saw that. They're oftentimes smiling, mouths agape, just hanging out, like recording what they need to record, doing what they need to do, and there's not even any thought to the butchering that's taking place there. So I'm so happy you noticed that because that's what I strive to communicate in those things. In terms of the second question, like it's funny. I think within, I love to use that term evacuation because it really is that when I have to get something out, like I feel like it's going to rot me from within if I don't. So in many ways, I think for a lot of artists, like there's just like insane catharsis in blasting this stuff out. And then also having other people to share that experience with. And it's like, oh my god, like other people feel this way and other people like enjoy this perspective, and it's like, oh my god, I'm not the only crazy one out there. Like I'm not the only one who's embracing the madness or the peculiarity of our kind of, um, yeah, like the state we're in currently. So I think that feeling of not being so alone, and for the longest time, it's so funny because like I was making stuff for, 10, 12 years. Well, I mean, I've been making stuff my whole life, but digitally, and then like the books that came out, 5 or 6 years ago that no one ever read. Like somebody, the only person that read it gave it a 1-star review because it made her physically ill on Amazon. Like that's a true story. So like so, and I don't know how she got the book.
So you're like the sugar-free gummy bears of the literary
Exactly.
world.
Yeah, that's the recommended pairing there. So you can become like sick on both of those things. Exactly. But it's like I found myself I found myself completely comfortable and accepting of my inconsequence, and the fact that nobody was ever going to look at my stuff, and the fact that nobody was ever going to read my books. But because I have to create, it's just what I do. Like I need to. It's creation for the sake of creation, versus all else. So in those moments, there were certainly times where I felt very lonely, and like I was just like, this is just so strange. I guess nobody else feels this way. Like um, this is kind of a wild perspective that I'm the only person in the world with this view. Like, how is that possible? And then once the digital art stuff kind of started taking off, then it was more and more people feeling that way, and it definitely felt a lot more. You feel that warm embrace from folks who are, living in your world, expanding on your world, just like, truly like kind of loving what you do. It felt very weird. So even though the pieces are like super, sometimes very depressing and crazy, like that feeling of a bond between everybody is definitely like really heartwarming and makes me feel really happy, like most of the time.
But there's also the dichotomy of your use of color, right? I mean, as dark
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
depraved as the works are, the colors kind of balancing all of that with there's a sugary sort of essence to the colors you choose, right?
Yeah, there was an Italian one of these. So I was at a gallery in Milan, and this very kind Italian man just said, he pointed at it and he just said poison candy, and that's all he said. And I was like, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's a very sweet, saccharine kind of shellacking on it, and then after people consume it a little bit, it's got this like really the rotten meat taste comes out after that first layer kind of dissolves.
I really want people to go check out your work. Is there I know people normally do this with authors, but is there any sort of reading you can do from your, X timeline or from some of your latest pieces that you can give people an example of exactly how you craft words to create images?
Oh, sure. I would love to. So what I would love to do, and this actually plays well in with Glitch, who Derek is on too. So what I did, there was this really special moment for me as an artist, where I've been painting these things called beef brothos for a really long time, which they're as they sound. They're ground beef versions of Mark Rothko's, and I found them to just be hilarious, and mainly in the absurdity of imagining like Rothko thinking about a random 30-year-old dude in his basement in Indiana making ground beef versions of his paintings. He's like, what is going on? Like I don't know. I found there to be like a ton of comedy in that, but what happened was with these beef brothos, the Glitch Gallery, along with Transient Labs, had me out to Marfa for the first time, Marfa, Texas, which is this beautiful and peculiar space where it's just like everyone's just freaky and weird, like in the most beautiful way. Like everybody just embraces who they are, and they embrace like a lot of really peculiar outsider art, and which is like perfect for me. I'm like, this is my home right now. But last year, what I did was I set up a flea market here where I dressed up like Rick from Pawn Stars, and I was like selling. I had beef brothos on the walls, and I was trading people art for fleshlights, and there was drugs flying all over the place. It was a beautiful observation on the arbitrary nature of creation and collecting, and just the absurdity of art and creation itself. So I became obsessed with that. But I could do a quick reading of the description of the beef broth goes, if
Yeah,
that's cool with you, because I think
absolutely.
it's really beautiful. Cool. There is no abstract or figurative or method or revolution or artists or collectors for that matter. And most of what we make or acquire will be mercifully forgotten in the puncture holes distributed by dull bayonets from a war that was never fought, buried in a sea of premium pornography, or suffocated by listless Novocaine drip leaking from an unhealing hangnail. But there is meat and flies. There is always meat. There is that. And the flies that satisfy their carnal urges in the pulverized existence of a beast born to feed and bleed. These strokes document the joyful moments in the slaughterhouse, the routine passings, the hooves and snouts and skin and bones, and cherished memories becoming mere runoff, swept into the drains to lubricate the purposeless gears again. There is comfort in creation, even if it is destruction. One more round is needed, one more final churn until the next one. There is happiness in meat. There is that. So that was like the description of the series, the flea market, everything, and it's like one of my favorite things I think I've ever written. But yeah,
I was talking to an artist named Stanley Whitney, and he was talking
mm-hmm.
about how he would go to these poetry slams in New York and just be overwhelmed because like his mind doesn't think that way. And just, just be so akin to jazz or whatever. Like, I mean,
Sure.
I totally respect that. And just the ability to like paint with words, man, that's a real gift. And so to be able to combine that is awesome. And so
Thank you for that.
yeah. So let's talk a bit about where you are and what you're doing. Derek Dies, I'm part of a residency that's going on at Glitch Marfa, 30 days in Marfa. Tell us about Glitch. How did it start? What's your vision? What's your vision for the residency? How'd you wind up hooking up with Di?
Yeah, I'll try and keep this super short so I can get to the dive portion because that's definitely the more interesting part. But so as folks may know, if they listened to the episode we did together about a year and a half ago, I'm a venture investor. So I invest in early stage startup companies and founders who are working on building on top of this new design space called blockchains. And I was the earliest investor in a project called Artblocks. And Eric Calderon and Snowfro, the creator of the Squiggle and the creator of the Artblocks platform, headquartered Artblocks in Marfa, Texas. So a few years ago, I went out there to visit. This was in their first year of business. I fell in love. Me and my business partner ended up buying the gallery. And I, along with Madison and Malta, two of my fellow curators, decided to kind of build a digital art gallery in the front of house, and my business partner Steve runs the back of house, the restaurant area. And over the last year and a half, the mission of Glitch was really to help start storytelling some of the important work that was being done in the crypto art space. Our first product was a product called Every 30 Days. So every 30 days, we essentially ran a crypto art exhibition of an important previous work that had been made in the blockchain space over the last 5 or 6 years. We've worked with artists like Xcopy, Snowfro, Tyler Hobbs, Larva Labs, Claire Silver, Emily Shee, and a number of others. And essentially, we have the exhibition live for anybody in the town of Marfa to go visit. We also stream it live through a video camera to the internet on our web app, so anybody around the world could enjoy the exhibition itself. We would put together a long form essay breaking down the work, why it was important, why it was interesting, why we thought it was, significant enough to highlight. And then we created a very clever product called Exit Through the Gift Shop, where people could buy a digital object, a poster, an exhibition poster for the exhibition. And in the last 12 months, we grew a pretty cult following around what we were trying to do. I'm of the belief that if it's not interesting, it's not worth doing. And I thought a year was a good enough time to run these 30-day exhibitions, but we wanted to start engaging more with the community of Marfa with our second product. And so at the very top of our game, let's just call it, 6 rings in, like Michael Jordan, we decided to kind of explode that first product and completely change it up. And the through line was that 30-day constraint. And we thought, let's start talking about the future of crypto art and highlight the artists that we think are at the bleeding edge, doing the most interesting stuff that we can find. And Dai was at the very top of that list. So our second product is this product called 30 Days in Marfa. Same 30-day constraint, except we're parking a brilliant crypto artist having them live in Marfa for 30 days, make creative work, extend their creative practice in new directions. And we thought Dai would be a brilliant kind of person to kind of kick off the entire series with. So that gets us to Dai, who's been living in Marfa for the last couple of weeks at this point. He's been making physicals, he's been working on his digital work, and yeah, I'm happy to announce that, in about a week and a half, closer to 2 weeks, Dai will be launching his first procedural on-demand generative art collection with art blocks and glitch on May 30th, and it's going to be 669 unique one of ones that are nested inside of a on-chain algorithm. So I like to think it's a beautiful extension of stuff Dai has been doing for years. And it's taking his creative practice into kind of new technical territory, which we're very excited about, and which I think Dai is very excited about. But I'll pause there and let Dai jump in.
I'm sure Derek provided you a tent to live in out back behind this behind
It's
this
not much more than a tent, but yeah.
Yeah, it's actually just a porta potty, but it does convert into a small bed. Yeah, I've been doing good out here. I've been thriving really. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean, to get the call back and like it's the things that childhood dreams are made of, like, and especially like we had talked about before, coming to the acceptance that the things you made weren't wanted, and that no one was ever going to even remotely consume, let alone purchase, or let alone view any of your art or any of your writing. Being out here and creating relentlessly like I love to do has been kind of one of the most freeing moments of my life, definitely. And it's just such a crazy opportunity. And I just have to say a huge thank you to Glitch once again for having me out here, because it's just, I sit in the gallery, like, my day to day is like I'll put on doom metal on these like speakers here, just get my head blown off and just paint and code and draw. And it's like the best thing to ever exist. It's so nice. And the comedy here is that my current job that I work right now thinks that I'm just working out here too. So I still have like a 9 to 5. So the project itself that Derek alluded to is actually called Nameless Dread. And what it is it's a distillation and then a manifestation of the 10 years I've done at this company, creating digital waste that nobody wants or needs. That it's that same inconsequence that I had talked about. It's the creation of complete and utter filler content. It's the lips and holes of a hot dog. It's the cantaloupe inside of a edible fruit arrangement. Those are the things that I was making. Nobody wanted them. They were discarding them for this company as well. So it was weird. There was this parallel between the stuff I was creating for this company that no one wanted and the art that I was creating that no one wanted as well. But it all culminates in this very beautiful moment where now I'm in this gallery in the desert, creating the things that I like really love. And hopefully, the people love this project. But the Nameless Dread is something that I really wanted to explore. It's that sickening feeling that we all have waking up every day, knowing that we're going to wade through another tide of listless transactions, of pointless meetings. Again, just waiting for that butcher's knife that we were talking about to inch a little bit closer to our throats and finally bleed us out in our ergonomically correct desk chair. And so what I've done is I digitally hand painted 669 of these decaying, decrepit, rotting employees that are kind of in varying states of translucency, of bandage, of just kind of eroding again into their desk chairs. And then what we did was we worked with this absolute god level creative coder, Sydney Parks, who is she's one of the most incredible artists I've ever met in my life. But we worked with her to help realize the coding part of it. So she helped code out these silhouettes of employees who had died doing the same thing, of these kind of backgrounds that are meat inspired or fluorescent light inspired, that are also responsible for kind of just slowly but surely taking the life out of us on a daily basis. So in combination with that, it's this heaving mass of a project that's been 10 years in the making and 6 months of lead up, and then culminating and climaxing within the gallery itself, finishing everything, making sure everything's done, and then also doing a ton of watercolors to accommodate the first people to also buy the mints. But it's crazy. Like, I don't, it's crazy to look at this thing and be like, there's 10 years of me in this piece, because along with everything else that's being included is there's writing in like so everyone's contained within like a Zoom container in this particular thing like we're on right now essentially. And you've got the little chat box. In over the 10 years, I would just sit there and write full pieces of writing. And so I scoured through the 10 years of writing that I'd done at the company too. And those are also being served generatively within the project. So people have like a unique little poetry prose for each of their piece. So it's like, there's so much in it. It's almost indescribable, but I'm so excited that I can finally like have this kind of release.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about residencies is that, you are capable of just going and not having any responsibilities other than just making, right? And what do you see Marfa and the experience of the location working its way into the pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that the piece that I talked about earlier, where it's like every single brick in the city, every single piece of asphalt, every person you interact with just bleeds that like really, that embrace of the peculiar. And I think that, by leaning into that, like the watercolors I'm doing right now are kind of unlike anything I've ever done. And it feels so awesome to be exploring that medium and exploring like again that really like I don't know, just you can't put your finger on it, that kind of really peculiar moment. And so it's also the unending like almost pry of the desert sun that drives you mad sometimes too, where like you're walking outside, it's like, oh my God, this thing is no different than the computers we stare at all day in terms of its ability to kind of bleed us of life in some ways. And just everything, I think that also being free of the perpetual state that I'm in my job currently, and having the freedom to just like create all day is also something that has like kind of had some untold, I guess, bastion of creativity, if you will.
So is it true you spent 3 days on a Greyhound to get there?
Right? I'm gonna say no questions at this time. I'm one of the biggest megabus. I'm a huge megabus advocate because it is it is an insane mode of transportation. Like I remember we were riding a megabus and our driver was like he was driving with his knees. He was chugging like a 52-ounce Baja Blast Mountain Dew and eating like a bag of insane gummy worms all at the same time. And all the while, I'm like, we're dying here. This is
Yeah.
it. I mean, what a great way to die. What an anticlimactic ending to my life. But yeah, I love buses, but I'm gonna go no questions this time for the Greyhound to Marfa. Yeah.
No, man, it's a different life. I somebody had chosen to come visit me and ride the Greyhound, and I remember going to the bus stop, which was these Greyhound bus stops can be like really rural, and it was just like a dusty spot in the road. And I get out there, and like people are getting off her bus, and this one guy has his luggage consisted of a trash bag full of his stuff, and he had over his shoulder, and he had an iron and a baseball bat. You're not exactly going through TSA when you're getting on a Greyhound, right?
No, no, no. Yeah, like what else was in that bag? I mean, certainly clothes, but there's some weird stuff in there. I can almost guarantee that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And so,
But yeah, it is. But there's something kind of like yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe sensationalizing a little bit, given that I almost died on that mega bus. But I don't know. There's something kind of like cool and crazy and freeing about being on those things too, where it's just like this is reckless. This is a reckless time. Here, let's do this thing. And I guess you're allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink on those too, which is great. So you can crack a couple frosty ones and get hammered while you're careening on the highway.
so Glitch Marfa is an ongoing concern. Your residency, we've got a couple of more weeks. This episode, I'm intend on getting up within 4 or 5 days of the end of the month. And so that would give people an opportunity to prepare for your drop. What else should we know, Di? What else should we know, Derek? What have I not gotten around to that folks really should know about Glitch and, Die with the Most Likes?
Di, why don't you go first?
No, I was gonna say I feel like I've talked enough. I think people know probably too much about me now. So like I think they've looked under the hood and it's a pretty filthy mess of wires and indiscernible animal parts. So yeah, you can go for it, Derek.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is, just on Die's side, we've got this meatball gala that's gonna happen in Marfa the day after the drop. So on June 1st, a bunch of folks in the town of Marfa, folks that are in the crypto industry, folks that are at the Consensus conference out in Austin, Texas, everyone's gonna kind of converge to the gallery to celebrate Die's work. We're gonna have an exhibition of all of Die's work that was created during the residency. And it's really just a time to celebrate kind of like Die's progression as an artist and the work of the residency and celebrate kind of the 30 days of living in Marfa, making creative work. And then just in terms of the date and time for the actual work that will be open for minting, it's May 30th at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time on Artblocks. So Artblocks has just launched this new marketplace platform product. We're going to be one of the inaugural partners to launch, and Die's work will be heavily featured there. So if you have, it's going to be the drop will be denominated in ETH. So for folks that are kind of new to the game of minting generative art procedurally and on demand, you'll probably need to open up a Coinbase account, transfer dollars to ETH, and then send it over to a MetaMask wallet so you can mint on the day of the drop.
Yeah. And hopefully people can find their own little slice of nameless dread. I think that was one real more quick thing that about it being generative, and why we wanted to explore that was just that, like, we sit behind these computers all day, and other people in in the digital space, are dictating our suffering, and we wanted that to continue in an artistic way. So it's like you're living in this slice of nameless dread that is very specific to you in a meeting that you'll never leave and is complete hell, but at least it's a piece of art versus
Sure.
the daily toil that we're in. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a TPS report, right?
Exactly right. PC
nailed
low,
it.
but
You
PC
nailed it,
low
Craig.
better. Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to say, Craig, thank you so much for all your these questions have been so thoughtful, and thank you for looking at my art and having me on the pod. Like, this has been so fun to talk to you, and thanks Derek and the Glitch team for having me out here and letting me explore like these kind of depths of creativity. It's just been such an incredible experience. Like I said, just the things childhood dreams are made of. So it's been so cool. So thank you once again for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all the time we have for this week. You've been listening to Art Sense. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. And while you're there, please rate the show and leave a quick review. Your feedback is the key to other folks finding us. And if you'd like to see images related to the conversation, read the transcript, and find other bonus features, you can go to canvia.art and click on the podcast tab. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can email me at craig@canvia.art. Thanks for listening.